Hey gang, your old pal Clay here, Mountain Music Exchange. Today we're going to get a little hard and heavy with it with the new Epiphone Kirk Hammett line of guitars. Okay gang, there are a couple of Epiphone guitars available right now that are Kirk Hammett signature models. In my hands right now is this absolutely stunning purple metallica Kirk Hammett 1979 Flying V from the Inspired by Gibson Custom range. And this is a very, just at first glance and first hold, this is really the first time I've got a hold of one of these in my hands. It's a very light guitar. It's not heavy at all. I'm really surprised actually at how light this guitar is to be kind of a bigger guitar. I wouldn't say it's unwieldy, although some people would say that about a Flying V if you're sitting down. But it's a very light guitar. It looks very sort of Metallica, Kirk Hammett. I don't know about the purple necessarily as far as looking like a Kirk Hammett guitar, but I like that they did this because it offers something different than what you get just from the Gibson Custom Shop range, which is the black one. We'll talk about that one in just a second. Something I like about these Inspired by Gibson Custom lines, they really go into that attention to detail, and I've talked about this in some of my earlier Epiphone videos, but they really go into, you know, the little details, even on an Epiphone, which might surprise you until you realize they've kind of started to do that a lot more lately with the Inspired by Gibson Custom range. We'll go top to bottom on these in just a second. Right now I'm just going to show off and kind of talk about the available guitars that we have here right now. And so I mentioned the black one earlier, and here is that model. This one's a little heavier, so these may vary a little bit on weight. It's not much heavier, but it's noticeably heavier. But yeah, this is sort of the one that's, if you get that Gibson Custom Shop $15,000 Kirk Hammett guitar, this is going to be the one that is emulating the most. Although, you know, it doesn't have any of the relic. It does have a lot of the same specs. They still use the T-type pickups, which is what that model uses as well, which I think is very cool, that you sort of get the same sort of powertrain that you're going to get in a much more expensive guitar for, you know, literally under a tenth of the price. So I think that's just a really neat aspect to these guitars. Some other smaller things too. You'll notice the bridge is a little different. It's sort of on a custom design that he had on his, or may still have on his, I'm not sure. And I think that that's just a neat piece of detail, because they could have just as well called this a Kirk Hammett and thrown, you know, an ABR1 style bridge or a Locktone style bridge on it, and just ran off and said, hey, this is a Kirk Hammett guitar. But no, it's got a bunch of small things that sort of differentiate this from other Epiphone or even other Gibson Flying Vs, which I think is very neat. Last but not least on our lineup here, this is probably the one that gets the most attention for other reasons that aren't Metallica or Kirk Hammett related. But here is the Epiphone Greeny Les Paul Kirk Hammett Signature Edition. And again, you know, this has a lot of attention to detail that you would see on, this one's probably a little closer, based on what I can tell, probably to the USA model, like not the Gibson Custom, you know, 20,000, 15,000, whatever it is, or the $50,000 one. This is of course not relicked. The Gibson model, the USA, has like a flat finish. This has Epiphone's VOS finish, which is like vintage original sheen, but it's really a relatively satin finish, which you'll also notice that the Gibson USA model has as well. But again, it's got attentions to detail on here that people seem to really enjoy, like the Schaller style tuners, or at least the Schaller style tuning heads are actually Grovers. Just some little things like that. The wide bevel truss rod cover. You know, on the original Greeny, the Epiphone logo was sort of rubbed off. So this one's just blank after your Epiphone mother of pearl logo. You do get real mother of pearl inlays on this, which is not on the Greeny, but I think, quite frankly, it's a cool touch. I think it looks good. And of course you'll get the Greeny buckers with this, which you do get with the Gibson USA model as well. And you'll see that flipped pickup there in the neck, so you can sort of get that out of phase tone. And we'll hear what that sounds like in just a little bit. And I'm gonna grab this one because it's a little lighter. And we're gonna go top to bottom on this and the Les Paul, and we're gonna hear how they both sound and compare to each other. Now before I do that, this video is probably gonna be titled something like, you know, which one is right for you, right? I think just by looking at these and the type of Kirk Hammett fan you are, you probably already know the answer to that. I pretty sure if you want to play some hard-hitting Metallica riffs, and that's sort of the space that you're in, this is probably going to be that one. This one, or of course the black one. The V is going to be the one for that. I think just for its presence, the fact that it sort of emulates a guitar that Kirk Hammett was sort of known for, you know, during the height of Metallica's heaviest years and things of that nature. Not that they're not heavy now. You know, this sort of emulates the type of guitar he would have used during those early sort of Ride the Lightning years and things like that. So if you're into the hard and heavy hitting riffs, this is the one you're going to go after. Okay? And this one, that's going to be for the vintage Les Paul fan, probably more so than the Metallica fan. Now, if you're a completist, the correct answer to which one is right for you is going to be both of these guitars, right? If you are an absolute Kirk Hammett fanboy, fangirl, then that's going to be what you're just going to say, hey, it's got Kirk's name on it, I'm grabbing it. That's it. So, anyway, I digress. My apologies, gang. Top to bottom. Okay, first thing I've noticed here with this is most of your current era Flying Vs from probably the last 20 or 30 years have had a very sort of pointier headstock. It's less rounded, but this model is in fact rounded off, similar to a Norland era Flying V that you would have seen at the time. Mahogany neck, mahogany body, which was accurate to a Norland era spec. Also accurate is that volute in the back, which people used to, for some reason, just despise, but I think it actually serves a purpose, it works well, and whether it's a vintage spec or not, which it's a vintage spec now, but I mean a golden era spec, you know. Whether it's a vintage spec or not doesn't really bother me. It actually works as a fairly decent hand stop if you have to run back and forth, up and down the fretboard quite a bit. And plus, you know, it adds a little bit of rigidity to the neck, and we all know Gibson and Epiphones could use as much neck rigidity as humanly possible, right? Indian Laurel fretboard here. I've said this in other Epiphone videos. Throw some lemon oil on this and don't think about it. It is not a correct spec to the Gibson custom shop model or any vintage or current Gibson model that I'm aware of with the Indian Laurel, but it's dark. It feels good and porous with some lemon oil on this to sort of get some of the dryness out. Once you get in the groove, you will not care. It will not bother you. I don't think if you just let that go for a little bit. It's still maybe not necessarily my favorite spec. I think everything's kind of been lifted on rosewood now. So we can go back to using rosewood, but the Indian Laurel does not bother me in the least. So that's fine. Mother of pearl dot inlays on this as well. I really like the way these frets feel. They feel sort of vintagey. They're not as big as you might expect on a Flying V guitar, or at least not this one, but they work really well. When I run, you know, the strings over the frets, I don't hear any scratches. I don't hear any crazy stuff. Nothing has indicated to me in any section of this guitar yet that it's going to fret out. So I'm really, really happy about that. Of course, you get the Epiphone 3-point truss rod cover, which is a perfect emulation of the Gibson 3-point truss rod cover on a Flying V. T-top pickups here. I'm sorry, T-top pickups here. I do that all the time. T-top pickups here. I think those debuted, if I'm not mistaken. Please correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. Those debuted in the Chicago Music Exchange spec SGs a few years ago. If that's correct, let me know. If that's incorrect, I'm sure you'll let me know. Okay, you got your large V pickguard here, which is indicative of the era. Your custom style bridge. I do have a question about this bridge. If anyone is aware of what this bridge is, I realize that it's an aftermarket bridge that was added to Kirk's guitar sometime during that period, you know, that early era of Metallica. But I have no idea what this is. Is this sort of like a take on a shallow bridge that you could get at the time? That seems like something that would be a thing. Let me know in the comments what this bridge is supposed to emulate, because I'm really struggling to figure out exactly what that is. But I like this bridge a lot. It looks like it's a high mass bridge, which, you know, late 70s, early 80s, everyone was all about add mass, it'll get you sustain, right? So this is sort of an emulation of that It looks right. It's the same style bridge that comes on the Gibson Custom Shop $15,000 Kirk Hammett Epiphone model. And then of course you have your lock tone tailpiece here, which a lock tone tailpiece is neat. I've explained it before, but I'll be more than happy to explain it again. The lock tone tailpiece won't come out when you loosen up all the strings. If you need to do a quick string change, like you just cut the strings and you want to pull them loose, run some new strings through, the lock tone bar won't leave. Whereas a vintage style tailpiece would leave. It would just fall loose because it's only tensioned in by the strings. Another cool thing here, I think, is the speed knobs. Normally a Flying V would come with like the sort of SG style top hat knob, or like a bell knob. But, you know, Kirk, for whatever reason, had this one outfitted with speed knobs. I don't think this was a Norland Era spec, so I think this is a Kirk spec more so than a Gibson spec. Again, if I'm wrong, let me know in the comments below. CTS pots, Mallory caps, Switchcraft switch, and of course, this cool output jack, which has like a poker chip added to it, although it's not necessarily required. I think that's another Kirk mod. I think it just adds rigidity here because these have been known to, you know, under pressure, or if you accidentally step on a cable and you pull it, you know, the pick around the jack has been known to break. The poker chip on some of the other older, like 58 style V models, they've been kind of known to break. So if you add both, you have less of a chance to break, right? Pretty cool player mod, especially for the era again. But yeah, that's the Kirk Hammett Flying V. One last thing, you get that cool Kirk Hammett logo. Everybody sort of gets that logo now after the Zakk Wylde model had the logo on the back. Dave Mustaine's got a logo on the back. Now Kirk's got a logo on the back. And it looks cool. You know, it's, you know, sort of a silhouette of vintage Kirk holding up the Flying V, which I think is really neat. You also get your stamped serial number, IGC, for Inspired by Gibson Custom. All right, so next up is Greeny. Pretty cool guitar. It's got a really cool looking flame on it. These flames do sort of wildly differ, but I chose this one because you can see it pretty good. You can see it kind of shift with the light. I hope I can get you a good enough shot to show that off as well. Pretty neat. This is sort of like a dirty lemon. You know, this Greeny's burst has faded tremendously over the years due to, you know, excessive stage use, lighting, play, sun, everything else. So it sort of has that look to it. Top to bottom, you of course get that cool Gibson headstock, which is relatively accurate to what you would see in a 59 Les Paul as far as the actual shape, length, etc. Now, with this one, you see the shallower tuning heads, but again, you actually have Grover tuning machines. So it's just the machine head that looks like the shallower old school tuner, which is fine. They work really well. The look is there. And really, I think at this price point, you know, the functionality coupled with the look is all that matters. Also, going down the neck, it's kind of got that big 59 rounded neck on this one. The neck on the Flying V isn't necessarily chunky, but it's not necessarily slim. It's just a nice C shape that fits in your hand really well. Of course, you have your large beveled truss rod cover here. No Les Paul logo, as Greeny's has faded tremendously over the years. If you get the Gibson USA Greeny, or you take a look at that one, or you play that one, you'll see that it has the same thing. Just under the Gibson Mother of Pearl logo on that one, there's no Les Paul silk screen anymore. So just like that under the Epiphone one here, the same applies. You again have an Indian Laurel fretboard that is quite dark. I'm sure you can see it here. I'll get you some close-ups as well. But it's quite dark. And again, looks porous enough. It looks the part enough to play it well here. And I realize that this is probably going to be the area where people are probably the most, you know, upset or what have you, that there's no rosewood, because this is a 59 Les Paul. This is Greeny. This is a legendary guitar, right? But it works well here. And at this price point, $14.99 for this one, it works good enough, I think. With mother of pearl inlays, again, not a vintage spec, but that's fine. Not a big deal. They look good. They stand out well on the fretboard. Mahogany body, mahogany neck, of course. Now, in a 59 video I'd done, I maybe errantly or erroneously had stated that This is a flame maple veneer, and the flame itself is a veneer. This does have, however, a full maple top underneath. So tonally speaking, it's full on Les Paul. You know, it has all the right, it checks all the right boxes to be, you know, the Les Paul that you want it to be. So this does have a maple top, but with a flame maple veneer. Now, this veneer is very well done. And if you just didn't tell me, or, you know, you kind of just get it out of your mind for a second, it's not a problem, really. The fact that it's a veneer means nothing. It's visual. The flame's always just been for visual anyway. Greeny buckers here, same as you'll get on the Gibson USA model. Greeny buckers here with the flipped pickup, so you can get that cool out-of-phase Peter Green sound. We'll check that out shortly. ABR1 style bridge here with the wire retainer, but again, you do have the posts that go in two bushings that are already mounted in the body. So the posts don't go directly into the body like a traditional ABR1. With this one, it looks like you may get the lock tone tailpiece with this as well. And if you do, that's fine. It's not a vintage spec, but it is a good player spec or a tech spec or a roadie spec for those who might have to change strings a lot on the fly. Two amber knobs here, two silver top gold knobs here, volume, tone, volume, tone. This was, you know, a Greeny hallmark. A lot of people will just do this mod to their Les Paul, for example, and just, you know, so they get that Greeny look. So that's sort of the look that's probably most associated with Greeny on top of all the other relicking and that sort of thing. With this guitar too, you also get a really nice hard shell case, and that case, I'm going to show it to you now. That case is sort of, you know, that Lifton style case with the pink interior. It's really, at first glance, if Kirk Hammett's name wasn't anywhere on this guitar or associated with it, because it's not actually anywhere on this guitar. There is no Kirk Hammett logo. There is no Kirk Hammett, any provenance whatsoever to suggest that this is a Kirk Hammett guitar if you just didn't know in the marketing, etc., right? But it's got that pink interior, you know, you get some stickers, some case candy, and it's really era specific for what a 59 Les Paul would come with. It, you know, has that pattern that sort of looks like that Lifton pattern on the outside of the modern Lifton cases that you'll get with, you know, historic Les Paul reissue, for example, right? The Kirk Hammett Flying V at $12.99, by the way, for a guitar that is literally spec'd over 10 times its price, for the most part, minus the poly, you know, no relicking. So this is not a nitro finish, no relicking, none of that. But you get a case with that one as well, and it's that sort of, at first glance, it looks like your standard Epiphone Flying V case, you know, that you would buy aftermarket for 100, 150 bucks, whatever they cost, right? But once you open the inside and you see that gorgeous sort of red interior, that is a specific era, you know, of Flying V. I remember I had an early 80s Flying V at one point. When you opened it up, that red interior I always thought was really cool. It looked, especially when you associate it with Kirk Hammett and you know his love for horror movies, etc. Almost gives you this Dracula's coffin vibe. So yeah, it's pretty neat. But that's going to be it on those as far as specs, top to bottom, things of that nature. With the Greeny, by the way, you are still going to get CTS pots, Mallory caps, Switchcraft electronics as far as the switch, the output jack. And I think if nothing else, it is just a cool player, a cool 59 sort of esque guitar, and at its price point, a pretty darn good tribute to Greeny. So if you're into Greeny, you're into Gibson history, you're into Les Paul history, rock and roll history, and that's your price point, there's no reason not to get that guitar. It's Kirk Hammett aside, it's just an awesome guitar. And same goes for this one, although it is a little more Kirk Hammett oriented, a little more metal oriented. So I'm gonna run you guys through some tones right now, okay? And I'm gonna do some clean, I'm gonna do some sort of Marshall-y tones, things like that, and then I'm just going to go full on heavy metal with both of these guitars, because why not, right? And then we'll do some hard hitting riffs on those and kind of see how they stack up as far as if you want to get to that heavy area, you know, how they stack up against one another. I think we know who's going to sort of win the clean to mid gain-ish thing, but maybe not. I might be proven totally wrong. I don't know. So let's check those out. I'm going to be using a Line 6 Helix. We're going to be using the US Princess amp model. We're going to be using the Brit 2203 model. And then we're going to be using Das Benzin Mega Lead that is going to emulate like a diesel. So that's pretty much a very modern Metallica sound with both of these guitars, and see how they stack up. So let's give that a go, gang. Okay, gang. So, I think what I took away from this, best all-rounder here, is probably Greeny. If you want a guitar that you can take to a gig and play all kinds of different things and not look, feel out of place, you know, and even if you want to get thrashy with it, this will do it. I don't know if you'll get that same sort of powerful feeling that you'll get hitting heavy riffs on a Flying V, though. You know, I don't know if you'll get that same feeling, but this will do it. So if I were gonna just buy one because I needed a, you know, I needed a guitar, I think the fact that this is, you know, more so associated with the history of being Greeny and that sort of thing, this will do a little bit of everything. Not that the V won't, but this does it in a way that sort of lets you sort of not feel out of place. But if you are specifically metal oriented, there is absolutely no reason not to get the Flying V. The pickups are T-type, which is an Alnico 2, sort of low mid output in that 8 range, you know, but there is a brightness to them, and they hit in such a way that, you know, you can really hit the heavy riffs hard on them, especially, you know, low E, you want to chug, and they seem to work pretty well for that. I like both of these guitars. I know you probably hear that a lot from me. I do like both of them. I have a couple of faults with some of them. I don't love the way they're always set up out of the box, you know, that sort of thing. But this one's actually set up quite nice. The Greeny is set up pretty well out of the box. The neck is good and straight. The action's pretty low. That's gonna have us on this one. If you liked the video, give us a like and a subscribe so we can get some more video content out there to you. We really like doing the videos here at Mountain Music Exchange. We think it's fun. We hope you enjoy them. And thank you for hanging with the gang today. That's it, gang. Check us out on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, where our buddy Haas is into all kinds of crazy things. And check us out on mountainmusicexchange.com, where you can check out that new arrivals section. You can see these guitars and any other new and used gear that comes in the store, and if it's in stock, it's on the website. So if you see it, we have it. That's gonna have us on this one, gang. Thank you all a ton. I'm Clay. You rock. Have a good one.